Hey, it's Mike Brennan. We're doing in one of our special broadcasts here for ITC in Michigan. And they're the folks that do the power lines, the big power lines that you see everywhere. They don't deliver the electricity the last mile. That would be consumers, DTE, and folks like that. But one of the issues that we're going to be looking at are, well, trees. We love our trees in Ann Arbor, but trees in bloom make for some beautiful scenery, but they also create a hazardous combination with power lines. Joining us today to talk about how vegetation and power lines can coexist and the importance of vegetation management are Rachel Woodbridge, Vegetation and Transmission Line Maintenance Manager, and Seth Chicas, Senior Vegetation Management Specialist at ITC. Thank you both for joining us today. Rachel, let's start with you. Would you mind kicking things off by reminding our viewers who ITC is and providing a brief overview of your role with the company?
Absolutely. Thanks for having us today. We're happy to talk about ITC and the Vegetation Management Program. So the power that keeps the lights on in homes and businesses flows through a three-part system: generation, transmission, and distribution. ITC is the nation's largest independent electric transmission company. So unlike other local power utilities, we're uniquely focused on that middle piece, the transmission portion. Basically, we move from power from where it's made to where it's needed through the high voltage system. We develop, build, and maintain the transmission infrastructure that holds the three-part system together, much like the highways do in our country's network of roads. In my role as Vegetation and Transmission Line Maintenance Manager, I oversee the vegetation program, including the inspections and maintenance of our transmission lines, and I'm responsible for helping to communicate and educate the community about safety related to vegetation. I'll turn it over to Seth.
Yeah, thanks, Rachel. And my name is again Seth Chicas, and I'm a Senior Vegetation Management Specialist. I oversee program policy and procedure, NERC compliance, and coordinate with other project managers at ITC to ensure that ITC's vegetation activities are in compliance with various permits.
All right. Well, thank you both. Before we dive into vegetation management, can you provide a little more background about yourselves? What led you to a career in energy?
Of course. So I've been with ITC for the bulk of my professional career. Working in energy has been a goal of mine from early on in college. When earning my bachelor's degree at Kettering University, I started an internship with ITC. The internship turned into a full-time engineer role, and here I am now. Seth, let you go.
Yep. I've always been interested in the environment and in nature, and I studied environmental biology in college at Forest Grove, or Pacific University in Forest Grove, Oregon. And I studied the three. And after I got my degree, I've done many different jobs. I've worked in some parks, doing some restoration work, and then I ended up working at Davie Resource Group, which is a contractor for ITC, doing inspections in the field. And then I led a group of planning personnel in the field as well. I'm continuing to do inspections. And then I landed this role at ITC, actually working for ITC, coming up on 2 years now.
All right. Well, let's start with the basics. Seth, what does vegetation management entail, and why is that important to ITC?
Well, when trees get too close to power lines, it creates a potential electrical hazard from electricity traveling through branches. This can cause a tree to catch fire, threatening nearby people and plants. Additionally, fallen trees and limbs can come into contact with power lines, can cause outages or public safety hazards. So our focus on vegetation management is all about maintaining a safe environment and ensuring the reliability of our power grid. We take a three-pillar approach to vegetation management: communicate, educate, and inspect. We communicate robustly and transparently with residents and communities about planned maintenance activity, sending notices and making personal contact to review the work. As part of our Right Tree, Right Place program, we hold educational events in our communities on compatible plantings in all types of settings, and we work with residents to help them identify the right places for trees. Foresters are trained field staff that regularly inspect our power transmission corridors to identify both appropriate and incompatible species site by site. We also inspect our transmission lines and structures twice a year, generally in the spring and fall, with the use of helicopter patrols, which we're currently in the process of doing right now.
Yeah, we did a story about that. I actually picked up your press release talking about how you're doing that around the state, and I flew a couple of times with your boss Simon, and It's quite an experience flying a helicopter over the power line. So I really liked that. It's fun. Yeah, one of those thrill seekers, right? Anyway, Rachel, why is safety so important to ITC?
Yes, it's very important. So when it comes to health and safety, we can't take any days off. We think about safety in everything that we do. This summer in July is actually our annual safety summits, where we take a day with office staff, field staff, contractors, and crews to focus completely on safety with a topic and a guest speaker. We work in an extremely dangerous industry, and we're responsible to ensure that every single person we encounter, employees, contractors, and the public, go home safely to their families every day.
Okay, so Seth, you mentioned that you work to identify compatible plant species when inspecting transmission lines. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, it's important to plant native or compatible species along our transmission line to ensure no environmental harm is being caused and to make sure the compatible flowers and grasses don't grow into, I mean, those are the best things that don't grow into power lines. So we have a list of compatible species. We split the area around our power lines into 3 different groups: the wire zone, the border zone, and the outer zone. Native plant species are divided among these 3 zones to ensure that we're avoiding interference with our power lines. And we have a full list of these compatible plants. You can visit our vegetation management website at ITC.
All right. And Rachel, when you do your inspecting vegetation throughout the year, how does that work?
Yeah, so in addition to our biannual aerial patrols, we also conduct a foot patrol once per year, along with our annual maintenance inspections. Our annual foot patrols cover all of our NERC lines. During these patrols, crews look out for any damage or wear and tear on the power lines, as well as identify any vegetation related hazards. Annual maintenance inspections cover select miles of our transmission lines based on our right-of-way conditions. Right-of-way refers to the areas that our lines run through. So these inspections take up a bulk of our anticipated activity every year. Seth, do you have anything more to add?
Yeah, during our aerial patrols, we look at power lines that are rated from 100 kV and above. We typically conduct these inspections at flights at low altitudes to ensure that we're getting an accurate assessment of equipment and potential issues. From about January to March, we primarily focus for the upcoming calendar year. When spring rolls around, we start to trim cycle, so do more trimming type work and complete smaller jobs such as access mowing. And then we begin herbicide prep, which gets underway by late May and early June. And once the leaves are out, we do our full spring aerial patrol because we want to make sure we can see the health of the trees. So we want to make sure that the leaves are out. In the summertime, targeted herbicide of incompatible species is in full swing. By then, we've started gathering info on vegetation conditions to create our next year's annual plan as well. Finally, during the fall and early winter, we will conduct our fall aerial patrol and resume capital project work. We also have collaborative meetings with field personnel to plan for our next year's annual plan. And the main reason kind of between the fall and the summer, and in the winter and the fall, we have better access, so we can do a lot more of those bigger jobs. And then in the summertime, we have to focus on stuff where we don't really have as much access. And that's where some of that trimming comes into play.
All right. So, Seth, how do you tell when a tree is creating a potential hazardous situation for power lines in communities?
Yeah, so we split trees of concern into 2 different categories: danger trees and hazard trees. A danger tree is a tree that is standing on or off the right of way with the potential to contact or come in within arcing distance. So if it falls, it can get close enough that it can flash over into the tree. And so that is just a tall, tree that's tall enough. But a hazard tree, on the other hand, is a tree that is structurally unsound, posing an unacceptable risk of falling or failing before the next scheduled maintenance. These are high priority on our vegetation management team, so we will address the hazard trees. So danger tree isn't necessarily a hazard tree, but all hazard trees are danger trees, if that makes sense. But the hazard trees are definitely the ones that we want to take care of, either reduce the height of them or remove them before the next maintenance cycle.
Okay. So, Rachel, how do residents know what to expect during these vegetation inspections? Is there anywhere they can go with their questions?
Absolutely. So We strongly believe in having open communication about our vegetation management activities that affect the nearby residents and landowners. We notify communities of our plans through door tags, personal contact, printed notices, or other methods. You can often find news articles about our aerial inspections before they're conducted as well, which, like Seth said before, they're happening right now. We also have more information on our website, ITCMichigan.com. Under Community Impact, you'll see a vegetation management section with additional details, or you can reach out to ITC's customer line with questions or concerns.